Welcome back to another episode of Remotely Speaking Up. And this week we are joined by Glen Hodgson. Glen is the president and CEO of Free Trade Europa and the leader of the freelance movement in Sweden. Glen, we're so happy to have you. I know you've been doing a lot of great work through your platform economy website and through the research that you've been putting out there as well, advocating for the rights of freelancers. And that's what we're really going to focus on in this episode. We're looking for what is the freelancers' experience, but more so what is being done in society to ensure that they also have a good working experience, as good as any other worker in the organization, or even better, hopefully, as we try to improve everyone's work experience. So Glen, welcome. We're happy to have you. And tell us a bit about yourself and what you do with the platform economy and Free Trade Europa.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, it's great to be here, Rochelle, and thank you for the time and the opportunity to be on the fantastic podcast. And as you say, yes, so Free Trade Europa is a think tank looking at free trade openness, personal choice issues, and also we've been looking a lot about the future of work topics. And this was kind of from this that I started the platform economy group, which morphed into freelance movement. Given the fact that so much of the society today is, thanks to digitalization, is becoming online. It's bringing in remote work, it's bringing in the platform economy, the gig economy, the sharing economy. As people become more and more used to using data, using technology, and looking for the benefits of digitalization as it's affecting all parts of our life, it's also looking at the world of work and the labor market. And it's for this reason that kind of freelancing is taking on a bigger role in society and in the economy. And there's more people who are actually sort of thinking about taking this as a realistic lifestyle as well as a work choice in terms of demanding more flexibility, more opportunity, and more control over the work that they do. And I think that the pandemic during these COVID-19 times has really been an opportunity as well as a threat. An opportunity in the sense that more people have been working remotely, furloughed, or sort of thinking about how can I do my job remotely? How can I use technology more and more? And I think that we're seeing the start of the technological revolution in the world of work, but also this kind of freelance movement. The fact that people are actually moving away from the traditional 9 to 5, 5 days a week, selling hours to one employer. People are demanding something a little bit more different, a little bit more developed. But of course, as you were alluding to there as well, Rochelle, they want to have the same benefits. They don't want to be seen as second-class citizens. They want to have a safety net. They want to have some kind of structure. And they also want to have some protection as well within this.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that we saw even before the pandemic, because the gig economy was really becoming, let's say, a trending issue, let's say about 5 years or more before the pandemic. And one of the issues that kept arising was the issue of rights, workers' rights, because we have seen a lot of abuse in that space. So I think the work that you're doing there is wonderful because it still needs to be done. So why did you choose this mission though? Why your involvement in advocating for the rights of freelancers?
Yeah, well, it's a great question, Rochelle. I mean, it started from sort of the research work that I was doing into this topic, and also the sort of the changing world of work. What was this actually bringing on board, and what were the opportunities and what were the threats there? And also, of course, I've got skin in the game. I'm a freelancer myself, working on projects, working with partners, organizations. So I've got skin in the game in terms of wanting to make sure that this is seen as something that's a reputable career and lifestyle choice, and secondly, the fact that it needs to have the same respect, but also the opportunities that are actually created there as well, and making the sort of the viewpoint known that this is something that is legitimate, It's above board and actually sort of giving more and more to society as well as companies and the economy as well. And I think we see sort of the increasing rates of people doing this. And of course, in the media, and a lot of politicians have been focusing on one specific area of the freelance movement and the future of work, which is namely sort of ride-hailing and the food delivery portion of this. But there's more and more sort of consultants all the way through from the architects, lawyers, medical professionals, all the way through to builders, models, and musicians who are actually sort of freelancers and want to actually sort of control more of their time and want to be seen as a valuable part of society. But at the same time, we're seeing a lot more startups, but also large organizations who are actually getting a freelancer strategy on board, maybe having sort of a fixed workforce. But what we're seeing here in Sweden anyway is a lot of the big organizations moving towards almost 20% of their workforce is made up of freelancers, independent consultants who can actually come in and do specific jobs, deliver results, and then move on to the next task. So this is the bringing on board the realization, but also this knowledge sharing and also education process, what's actually happening to make sure that the legal framework and the protection actually catches up so that we're not left behind in terms of what we can bring to the table and also our value and contribution to society, Rochelle.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you have highlighted as well that the gig economy, that freelancing goes beyond the gig economy, because I think when we first started hearing about the gig economy, the gig revolution, all we kept hearing about was the rights of Uber drivers, the rights of Deliveroo.
Yeah.
And we tended to think of freelancing in that sort of bracket of low-skilled employment. We're actually, since the pandemic, but also even before then, we are seeing more and more that almost every job or every sector can take on some form of freelancing or can work via freelancing in some way. So I like the fact that you used the term earlier as well, the sharing economy. So can you tell our audience a bit more by what you mean by the sharing economy?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's sort of I think in its broadest terms, what we're looking at is the economy which is being brought up to speed by digitalization. So allowing us to sort of do things, and this can be sort of the selling and buying, as well as the sharing of goods and services across digital means. And I think the sharing economy is more and more into the idea of we're actually sort of sharing the resources that are there. We're actually using the competence, expertise, and knowledge which is available. So as individuals, we can actually share this with companies, organizations, and other individuals on a service perspective. But it's also about products as well. You know, we're becoming much more aware of societal impacts, of environmental impacts as well, and kind of the old models of just sort of consuming as much as possible and then throwing it away just doesn't work anymore. People need to really realize that sort of the resources and the things that they sort of buy, consume, and share needs to be done in a much more sustainable way. And I think the sort of mindset of individuals is catching up. Is there a better way of doing this in terms of knowledge, products, clothes, our houses, cars, all these kind of things that people have in their homes or lying around not maybe using all of the time? Is there a better way of organizing the economy, society, and actually how we use items? So I think this is something as well which is increasing over time as well.
Yeah, I like how you made that link between freelancing and sustainability. I don't think a lot of people think about that actually in terms of how freelancing might be linked or how it can contribute. So going back also to what you were saying earlier about the rights of freelancers and protecting that, what are some of the major challenges that you see people have faced when it comes to entering the freelance space? What are some of the challenges that demand us to want to protect their rights?
Well, absolutely, Rochelle, and there are quite a few. I mean, first of all, I think the biggest thing is just this reputational element. As you were saying there, people see the freelancer lifestyle as being something which is you don't have any other choice, and it's low skilled, low paid. Which in the majority of cases is actually not true. It's actually opportunities. So this education of actually understanding what this is, it's a legitimate lifestyle choice as well. And also it's nothing to do with the sort of the traditional thinking about, oh, well, I can work less and get more money. You know, you work just as hard, you work in a slightly different way.
Sometimes
there's
even
no
harder.
excuse, and
sometimes freelancers
and sometimes harder as well. Absolutely. And I think this, the bottom line is there's no way around hard work. You know, there's no way of getting around this. It's not an easy option. It's often a harder option, as you say. But I think so I think this education process is important there, and acceptance. And I think one of the big things is, if we look at sort of in the majority of countries, the way in which the financial services sector is set up. So if you want to borrow money to buy an apartment, buy a larger item, they have this very strict old-fashioned way of looking at it, saying, well, we want to see your salary slips for the last 6 months. Do you have a full-time job? If you don't have that, you're automatically sort of declassified as a high-risk second-class citizen in their eyes. So the ability to actually sort of own things and get into sort of the traditional elements of society is limited. So that is something that needs to change as well. And a lot of people are sort of finding that. And also this element of social safety nets. Are you getting the sort of the social protection? Are you getting your parental leave, your sick leave, pension payments, all these kind of things which have become synonymous with a full-time employment in the past. And unfortunately for in the freelancing sector, it's not naturally been made this change. So it's a key thing for public authorities to be able to say, okay, you're not maybe sort of working full-time in a traditional contract, but you're working full-time or in some cases more, some cases less, but you can be a freelancer but still have the rights to social security, social protection, and all these things which have been taken for granted in the world of work. There is no reason why, if you choose the freelancing lifestyle, that you should forego these and not have access to them. So this is a key element as well. And it's also a big stumbling block for people who are maybe thinking about taking the plunge and changing towards a freelance lifestyle. They're actually stopped by the fact that they feel they'll be treated as a second-class citizen and not have the same access to these services from society.
Yeah, I think one of the things I really admire about your mission is that often, especially, and I keep saying a lot of time, especially since the pandemic, because that's really what spurred on the acceleration of remote work and freelancing, because we started to prioritize.
100%.
One of the things I really admire is that a lot of the talks, a lot of the workshops since then has been about how to help companies to better facilitate remote working.
Yeah.
I like the idea, I like the fact that you are championing this on the societal level, because we know some of that, I know in the UK, for example, Matthew Taylor, and of course, you know, our colleague John Younger, he's been doing something similar in terms of championing the rights of freelancers. I love that your company is fully, and your platform, your think tank is fully dedicated to champion this at a societal level, because companies can make necessary changes, but they still need the framework to make it happen.
They do. And I think this is why the legislative and the policy framework is not there yet. And looking at sort of the problems we have, particularly in Western Europe at the moment, we've got big issues with an aging society. We've got high youth unemployment. We've got really rigid labor markets that are not letting young people, not letting migrants into the workforce because they're shut outside. Here is a way that sort of freelancing can work with society, companies and organizations and allow a way into the workforce. But it needs to be done on an equal footing and not on something that's been seen as inferior or a step down in any shape or form.
Yeah, and for that reason, we constantly still refer to the fact that many people think that gigsters, even that term in itself is very casual, but freelancers or persons that work independently are often still seen as casual workers or the casual economy, rather than having that full-time value as an employee, as the same that you would give an employee. So I think that's really important. Can you tell us a little bit more about what some of the initiatives that your platform has undertaken to try to champion these rights for freelancers?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, we put together the code of conduct for companies and organizations. What they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing was a key element of this that everyone should be signing up to as individuals, companies, organizations, to say, this is how we should be doing it. This is how we understand the sector. And this is what we need to be organized on. What we're also doing as well is looking at very specific pieces of legislation at the moment and policy. So on worker rights, we're actually sort of working on the new proposal which came out of the European Commission in December of last year. So we'll be working with the European Commission, European Parliament, and also member state governments to be able to make sure we have the right approach on platform work and platform worker rights, to make sure that rights are respected, and also make sure that companies and organizations have the right to be able to bring in freelancers in the right and an equitable way. So this is something that we're looking towards. And at the same time, is work environment, health and safety issues. A lot of the national laws on health and safety and work environment were drafted during the industrial era, where it was very clear that you needed to protect someone going down a mine or someone working in a factory to make sure they didn't have an accident which would threaten their health, threaten their life, or injure them, which was all well and good. But now we've got more of the economy is going digital. How do we actually update those rules to make sure that the platform and freelance economy is actually included, that we have rights, that we have protection, but also to make sure that it's tailored towards the digital world of today. So we're working with policymakers, politicians, and also public authorities to make sure that we can push that forward. Another key area for us is taxation, to make sure we've got an equitable taxation element, make sure that taxes are paid, make sure that individuals who choose the freelancer lifestyle pay the taxes, but are also not outside and are actually covered within the tax regimes and are doing things properly. So this is something that's key for us, facilitating that and making sure that it's easy to understand and also easy to implement. So these are key areas, and on top of that is the general policy work around what is the platform economy, what is freelancing, what is the future of work, and actually helping governments, trade unions, and other policymakers, stakeholders to actually co-create what the future should look like, what is the regulatory and policy environment, and make sure that the voice of freelancers and freelance workers is heard and amplified within these debates.
It sounds like the starting point is to just have the right people in the same room to begin with. So you mentioned there.
It's absolutely crucial. And one of the key things for us is the idea of openness. So we want to speak with all politicians, all political parties. We want to speak with the trade unions, the employers, the traditional employers, federations, the workers, and really sort of base this on facts and figures and experiences, as opposed to so far it's people who've kind of not really understood the sector, thinking, well, this is what I believe it is. Let's put some policy in place. It really needs to be sort of based on the reality on the ground, but also future-proof this, because this is something that is exponential growth. And I completely agree with you. Since the pandemic, this has just gone up in terms of a lifestyle choice and a change to the future of work and the labour markets across the globe. And we need to be able to harness the power of this, not kill it, because there's a lot of opportunities for individuals, companies, and society that are contained within the sort of freelancing and digitalization future of work movement.
Absolutely. What kind of barriers? Because I imagine with those meetings, the different groups have their different agendas, there are different things that they're trying to achieve. So what are some of the biggest barriers and challenges you've come across in trying to champion the rights of freelancers?
I think the big thing is just the fact that a lot of the established players don't want to realize what's happening. I think it's the fact that there's been a traditional order of things for a very long time. The whole idea of particularly organized labor and organized employers, they still believe in a lot of cases that they don't want this to, that this will just sort of die itself out and we'll go back to a traditional model. I think the genie's out of the bottle now. We're definitely not going back. So I think this ability and realization that the future is already here, we need to actually change ways of doing things because the reality is there. I think that's one of the biggest barriers that we're finding, this inability or lack of desire to see where we are now and what the actual ongoing processes are. But I think this is something that will naturally have to change over time. And I think the big tipping point will be the fact that when the realization that larger organizations, larger companies have 20, 30, 40% of their workforce as freelancers, this reality will have to be taken on board in a much more serious way by the traditional players.
Yeah, and it's still crazy to imagine that 2 years on, we are still pushing back against old traditional mindsets. That's still
absolutely, yeah,
biggest challenge. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're remaining hopeful, but I think the work that you're doing is really great in this space. So what would you say for companies, and actually no, let's keep it at a societal level. What would you say in order to enhance the rights of freelancers should be governments or these institutions, these various bodies, what should be their top 3 priorities?
I think the first thing should be sort of the understanding of freelancers and the platform work more generally, and how the future of work is here. So I think that the key thing is for society, whether it's an organization, whether it's a company, whether it's a government, is to have a freelancer strategy. First of all, how will we actually bring these people into society, make sure that they pay their taxes, make sure that they're treated properly, make sure they have access to social security, all these kind of traditional benefits, but also responsibilities as well. I mean, the whole idea that you can sign up for something and to avoid tax, that needs to be avoided as well. It's really need to be something that's seen as equitable and something that's part of contributing to society as well as benefiting from it.
Yeah, as legitimate, completely. Sorry, carry on.
Yes, absolutely. So that's, I think, the sort of key number 1 on the list there. I think the second thing from a societal perspective is this issue of the financial services access to money and finance. You know, the ability to be able to have a bank account, set it up, be able to have loans, and actually understand how the freelance sector works. So you maybe have your salary goes like this, you get more 1 month, less 1 month, but understand how this actually works, that you're not a bad risk, that you're not someone who should be excluded from traditional systems. So that's a real call out to financial institutions and the broader sector. And that includes sort of insurance as well, all these kind of savings plans. These are things that need to be covered within that. And I think that within the societal piece, the third element is just opportunities. So it's really seeing that this is a way that you can live your life, earn money, and also retain the flexibility and the openness to opportunity that you're looking for in a societal viewpoint. So I think within that also the media have an important role to play to understand what this is, where we're going, and not just instantly say that this is something that's terrible, something bad, and just look for that one grain of sand on the whole beach, which is the freelancing world, and to be a bit more sort of open and balanced in their reporting and discussions of this trend, which is really a future of work trend. and it's not going to stop anytime soon. And I think that, we're better off getting the societal elements behind it, whether it's legal, policy, and structural, because even if we don't, it's still going to happen anyway, and we're going to have more and more problems. So I think now is the time to have those discussions and build the right model and the right framework for what we're doing.
Yeah, because we're still at the very beginner stages. And you remind me of a conversation I was having with someone when I first said that I wanted to have a fully remote consultancy. And the first thing they said, where I said, okay, I wanted to freelance full time, was that, oh, well, it's better to work for an organization because you get pension and you get security.
Yes. Yeah.
Because to pay for those things outside of an organization as freelancers, we know those things come at a higher premium. So I think you're absolutely right. If this is the way that society is going and we're going to have those larger percentages, then we need to cater for that new future of work and workforce, because what's going to happen is we're going to have a bigger proportion of society at a disadvantage.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's not good for anyone. And also, there's some great companies actually starting up, sort of banks for freelancers. We're seeing insurance for freelancers. So there's a lot of clever people who are actually seeing the gap in the market and are actually rolling out products and services to meet that need that we've just been talking about. So I think the future is bright as well, to tell you the truth, Rochelle.
Absolutely, yeah. Safety Wing is a really good example of a company that provides health insurance and that well-being for freelancers. So you're right, there are a lot of really good initiatives, and we hope to see more. Your company included. I love your mission. Absolutely. And it's so necessary. I think it's so necessary in our context.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep banging the drum, and it's great the number of partners we've got on board already, and the way in which this is just sort of growing over time. And we've got sort of coming out later in the year another study actually looking at the freelancers themselves, the raw data we're getting from freelancers. Now that's going to be a really exciting publication to bring real facts and figures and knowledge on this increasing trend.
I have to put that notification in so I get the bell and I get the first one hot off the press. I'll be looking forward to that. Brilliant. Definitely. Thank you so much, Glenn, for joining us. It's been such a pleasure to have you, and it's been really informative as well. Before you go, can you tell our audience, what is your funniest remote work story? What's the funniest thing that's happened to you when working remotely?
I think the usual funny. Yeah, I think we've seen this on sort of social media, TikTok and Instagram particularly, quite a lot recently. But when people don't realize they've got their camera on, when they struggle with sometimes the technology, some of the things that people say and some of the things that people do when they don't think they're being watched are hilarious. And I think that's sort of one of the joys of the specks of joy during this desperate COVID-19 lockdown period has been sort of the unintentional gaffes and humor that's been created by the online meetings and people not working out the technology. So that's something that I sort of take forward, and it still happens. So it's very amusing, and long may it exist.
Yeah, you remind me of I was once delivering a class. It was an undergraduate class, and it was online. And I didn't realize that while I was presenting my slides that they could still see me in the corner on a little screen. So they were doing the presenting and I was just watching. And while I was watching, I was eating cereal and picking my nose. So my students were watching them eating cereal and occasionally just scratching my nose. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us again. Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you for our audiences for joining us and showing up every week. This has been another episode of Remotely Speaking Up. And Glenn, just before we go, tell our audience where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. Get me on LinkedIn, Glen Hodgson, also Trade Europa on Twitter, and you can also visit freelance-movement.org. Get onto the website.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And guys, if you want to keep up to date with this freelance remote working revolution, make sure you follow Glen, make sure you connect with him, and also continue to follow us here on Remotely Speaking Up. And you can find out more on our Instagram page at Remotely Freaking Up or at crowdpotential.co.uk. So stay in touch and we'll see you soon, Glen. And thank you so much to our audiences. Take care. Bye.
Excellent. Bye now.